البكاء يا سابغ النعام يا دافع النقام يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام يا عالما لا يعلم صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بما أنت أهله وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, we'll start the today's session in a few moments. So can I request the ladies to come into the Gents Namaz Hall, please?
صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. So continuing on with yesterday, if everybody can open up the website qurancorpus.com, and the same is, it's the homework that we're going to be studying. Everyone's going to hand in their homework now. So if you type in chapter 3 verse 195 into the search bar, and then when the verse comes up, for you to scroll all the way down and click on the left hand side the English, the phonetic search, amilina. So it was 136. So what you'll find is, if you go all the way down to the bottom of that search on the left hand side in the phonetic is has, li, amilina, and that brings up all the times the verb amil is used. And your homework was to read through the verses and for you to teach me and us about the verses. So we're going to start there together, inshallah, okay? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فاستجاب لهم ربهم أني لا أضيع عمل عامل منكم من ذكر أو أنثى بعضكم من بعض فالذين هاجروا وأخرجوا من ديارهم وأوذوا في سبيله وقتلوا لأكفرن عنهم سيئاتهم ولأدخلنهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار ثوابا من عند الله والله عنده حسن الثواب آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Awaited Savior of humanity, Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, my respected teachers, elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We have reached the penultimate discussion in our month-long series on Tdabur Mawdhu'i. How we can perform Tdabur Mawdhu'i, how we can take any topic or theme of the Quran and search it. So far, Wa alaykum salam wa rahmatullah sayyidina. So far, we have practiced 3 techniques. 1, for us to be able to search a phrase. 2nd, for us to search a word. And 3rd, for us to gather verses regarding a particular topic. We practiced this 3 times. Yesterday, we started looking at where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the amilin in the Quran. And we used a particular website. What was the website yesterday that we used to search the word amilin in the Quran? Which one? Islamicity? Dot? /PS. Jazakumullah khair. So then we started to see how Allah uses the same word in different forms. And this is where your homework yesterday was for us to be able to use the second website, which is corpus.com. So we search the verse that we're looking at, and we look at the way in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses this word amilin. And we found in the verb, in the fi'l mudhari', in the active sense, Allah uses it sometimes as amil, sometimes He uses it as amilin, and sometimes He uses it as amilun. And your homework was to be able to read through these verses and for you to be able to present back to me the nuances of these verses, what you find is particular to those verses. So yesterday, when we looked at the word amilin, what were the different qualities of the amilin? Can anyone remember? What are the verses that Allah mentioned yesterday's search that we looked at? For example, a quality of the amilin is he who controls his anger. What else? Forgives other people. What else?
Gives charity both in good times and in
gives charity in ease and in difficulty. What was the particular reward for the amilin? A Jannah, the width of which is the heavens and the earth. Right? Yes, you're going to try to clean your heaven. And what else does Allah mention? That there are specific rooms. What did He say? There are ghuraf. There are lofty rooms in this particular heaven. So Allah gives us certain qualities, features of amilin in the Quran. And now we are searching it
a little bit more deeper, not just looking at the word amilin, but how Allah uses the word amil as well as amilun, so we can gather a comprehensive understanding of how Allah uses the word amilin in the Quran. Okay, so I hand it over to you now. Adnan has brought the search up. So if you have read through any of those verses for your homework, or you'd like to be able to read one of them and give us a discussion about it, we can help build up our understanding, our image of how Allah uses this word amilin in the Quran. So we already looked at chapter 3 verse 136. That's the title verse that we were looking at. That's the main verse that we were looking at yesterday. So the next verse underneath it is chapter 3 verse 195. So who wants to read this ayah and then tell me a little bit about what the qualities or what Allah discusses about the amil in this ayah? What is particular about this ayah that builds our knowledge of this mawdhu', this subject from the Quran? Okay, who wants to read the verse? Okay, so he's pointing to you, so you have to read it now in Arabic and then translate for us, inshallah. 3195. Okay. Ahsan. So what does it mean? And what is particular about this, about the amil, that builds our understanding of what Allah wants us to know about the amilin in the Quran?
Allah doesn't waste anybody's work, good work, whether they are male or female.
And their Lord responded to them. فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُمْ رَبُّهُمْ. What does he say? أَنِّي لَا أُذِيعُ عَمَلَ عَامِلٍ مِّنْكُمْ. Allah does not waste. Let any work of the worker go to waste, whether they be male or whether they be female. So what is particular about this ayah that you see when you try to think about the context, the meaning? What is Allah adding to our knowledge from yesterday today?
It's basically reassuring the good doers that whatever good you do, it won't be wasted. Don't feel that it's going to go waste or without reward. Or sometimes, when you get fatigued in doing good stuff, and you think, God, I'm done with this. That's something.
Brilliant. I'll repeat it. Did you hear that? So at times we get fatigued as workers in the community, and we might imagine that I've had enough now. Allah says, I don't waste any of the good work that you have done. Anything else? Ah, good. What else? What is that?
I said whether you're male or female, so there's no gender bias in that societies in the community.
Ah, that's amazing. So in Allah's eyes, when it comes to a worker, an amil, there's no gender bias here. Whereas in our communities, there is a gender bias. Right? Allah states that whoever does the work, whether you be male or female, Allah will not let your work go to waste. What else could it mean? How else is Allah building your understanding of amilin in the Quran here by this ayah? Anything else?
Also, the people, they went from Mecca to Medina for God. God would give them the due.
Ahsant. Indeed, Allah will give them their due. So you can see the next part of the verse, the context. فَالَّذِينَ هَاجَرُوا وَأُخْرِجُوا مِنْ دِيَارِهِمْ وَأُوذُوا فِي سَبِيلِي. Those who migrated or were forced to leave their homes, were evicted from their homes, or were harmed in my cause, or fought or were killed. What happens? لَأُكَفِّرَنَّ عَنْهُمْ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ. I will remove from them their evil deeds that they have done. Anything else on this ayah you want to mention? Why would a person imagine that their deed might go to waste as a worker? Why would Allah have to tell you that your deeds will not go to waste?
In case you're chastised by the non-believers.
Okay, excellent. Can you explain that?
Just reaffirming their own faith as opposed to the pagans and the non-believers.
Brilliant. It's reaffirming their own faith. That anything they do will not go to waste. Does it speak about whether it will go to waste in dunya or in akhirah?
No.
Which one? Or neither? Neither. So what do you take from this? Is Allah speaking broadly and generally, or is He speaking about a specific, your deeds will not go to waste?
So I'm just giving you a scenario. I'll give you a scenario which is related to me. So I took out sadaqah and I left and had an accident. And a thought came into my mind, says, what happened here? I came out sadaqah, I said the whole good things, and yet when I came out, had an accident and whatever. So sometimes you have these feelings within yourself that you're doing all the good work, but there's a lot of adversities that you're experiencing in your life. And you may have this waswasa from the shaitan that, look, all these good deeds are not helping you, not working for you.
Don't do it.
So, and then I think there in that context, I'm taking it, meaning for me is that don't worry. You may, it's a test, you may go through these things during your life, during your period of time, but at the end, when you return, you will be rewarded.
Ahsan. So even in dunya.
And even in dunya.
So your works will not go to waste in dunya, not just akhirah. What else could it mean in terms of, as a worker for the community, sometimes you feel like your efforts are not amounting to anything. There's no change being seen in the community.
Yeah, I think that's the point I was maybe going to say, in the sense that it's setting you that there is no ceiling to whatever you are, whatever you should do. Maybe sometimes someone would think, okay, if I just do like 10%, people will already appreciate that, and that's enough. And if you work relative to the environment you are in, or relative to the community, then maybe you will just work for a little bit and then you'll stop. Allah is like enabling you to see, like, look, there is no barrier. Just go as much as you want. If it is realized or if it's not realized, if you are doing 10 times what is even expected, still the 10 times that is more than expected will all be accounted for.
It will all be accounted for. It will all add up and take your work as far as you can possibly go. Min dhakarin aw untha. So it adds it here in this context, even if you're a male or a female, take your work as far as you can go. And then Allah Himself, He will not allow your work to go to waste. So He will make sure that whatever efforts you put in, something comes from it, inshallah. Okay, wonderful. So this adds a very nice additional understanding to what we have looked at. What's the next verse? If we go back to the search, right? What's the next verse that we would look at that we haven't yet looked at already in yesterday's search? Chapter number 6, verse 135. So if you want to open up this ayah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So who wants to read it for us? Who wants to give us some commentary on this and explain what it means to them? Sister Aram? Small commentary for us. Should I pick on Sister Zainab? Okay, alright. Sister Zainab, I have to now because Aram said so. Sure, please read it for us in Arabic in the translation, and then what do you take from this that adds to your understanding of amilin in the Quran? So what do you think it's saying? What's the context here?
Maybe like doesn't matter how much you can work or how much you can give to the community, whatever work you do will be like Allah will credit you for how much you work you do.
For sure. Give me the context of the ayah. Who is saying this? What is being said? Who is saying whom? Who is saying what to whom? The Prophet is saying it to his people. Which Prophet? So if we don't know, what do we do? How do we check? We look at the ayat before. So is there anyone here that is specific? Is it a specific prophet that's saying this, or is it our prophet that is saying this? Have a look. Is it? Say again?
Maybe it's the prophet because it doesn't say who, and usually if it doesn't say, it just say qul. It just
Ahsant. So Allah is telling whom? Our prophet, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Qul. Say. Ya qawmi. So whom is he addressing? Ya qawmi. To which community? Muslim. Is it the Muslim community? When is this chapter revealed? Al-An'am. Is it a Madani chapter or a Makki chapter? Makki chapter. Yeah? So whom is he addressing? The Makkans, the polytheists. Yeah? Ya qawmi. So, O my community. I'lamu ala makanatikum. You work as hard as you can according to your own capacity, according to your own position. What is he saying there to them? What does this mean?
Do the best to your ability.
Say again?
Do the best to your ability.
In which context? Do your best to your ability, number of push-ups? Do the best to your ability in terms of reciting the Quran and memorizing it? What's the context here?
Helping them.
Are you sure?
Helping others.
It's
Well, no. What else could it be? It's a challenge.
it's telling the people of Quraysh, you try your best, you do everything you can, you work as much as you want
Stop
to
me.
stop this light, and I will work, and this light will be.
Ahsant. This is the meaning of it. You work as you... And actually this ayah is mentioned elsewhere, as in other prophets have challenged other communities in the same language. You work as hard as you can to stop me. You call me out as much as you can. You threaten, you do whatever you want. I'malu ala makanatikum. You do whatever you want against me. Inni amilun. But I'm also going to work. I'm also going to do my job. So now just this phrase, what do you take away from this now? In the context of being amil. Just so far, forget the rest of the ayah. Now you understand the context. What does it mean to you when you do tadabbur? Imagine you are the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi. Allah is telling you this. Qul, Ya Rasulullah, I want you to say this. Because it's not the Prophet saying it of his own volition per se. I'm not saying that he wouldn't say this challenge. But Allah has told him, Qul ya qawmi. So imagine you are the Prophet and you are being told this. What comes to your mind at this moment? What do you think is occurring in this ayah?
But the next part of ayat explains it maybe.
First, let's agreed. But let's start with the first part. Qul. Imagine you are the Prophet. How do you feel about receiving, or what do you imagine is going on in the mind, in the heart of the Prophet when he is told this? Say again.
He knows that there's people being against him all the time. He knows that for a fact now because that's his book there.
So the Prophet knows that people are up against him. He's experienced it. Now he's challenging them to do, you know what we would say in English? If I was translating this loosely, say, do your worst. That's how we say it as a phrase in English, as an idiom. Right? Do your worst.
Can I add something? It also implies that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is supporting Rasulullah and telling him that go for it, you have my back and you'll be able to.
Ahsant. Allah would not tell him to say this unless actually it's going to give him the utmost confidence, isn't it? What gives him confidence? Inni amilun. I'm also working. Because the one who's instructing him to be so, if I can use my words, brazen, so confident in the face of hundreds of enemies, is that Allah is supporting him. Allah has his back here. Yeah? So what does this tell you at this point? Now, take it away from the Prophet's experience. Replace the Prophet's experience. Imagine this is you in this ayah. Or imagine you are trying to take something away from this ayah for yourself.
Don't stop working despite all the challenges that you may face.
You can't stop working despite all the challenges that you face. Right.
It's not a numbers game, it's you, regardless of how many are in front of you.
Ahsant. So how many was he up against? Pick a number, because it's the picking a number, isn't it? 1,000. I'm picking a number for the sake of it. It's 1,000. He says, Inni. He takes responsibility for himself. Inni amilun. It's not a numbers game here. You can be 1 against 1,000 here. What was the political standing of these people versus the Prophet? What was their military might versus the Prophet? What was their wealth against the Prophet? You work as you want, but don't worry, I'll work as I want. Do you remember I said to you 2 nights ago in the interfaith program, I said we have to make our 1 penny go further than their $1 million. Their $1 million is a bomb that dropped on innocent Yemenis or whatever it may be, right? Our 1 penny has to go further than their $1 million. You work, but don't worry, we'll work as well. So put yourself in the position. So don't stop working. It's not a numbers game. What else do you take away? Don't lose hope. The worker here does not lose hope at all. Brilliant. So let's get to the next part of the ayah, because Tariq was eager to help us think it through with the next part. فَسَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ مَنْ تَكُونُ لَهُ عَاقِبَةُ الدَّارِ. So in the future, you are going to know who will have succession, who will have success in the world to come, in the outcome to come. إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ. So in Arabic language, sofa here is quite important. It may be that we don't know the difference. When Allah uses the word sofa, it is something that's going to happen in the medium term future ahead of you at least. It's not sata'lamuna, it's going to happen quite soon. Sofa happens further away in the future. So why then, it's really good, you made your point and then add this together. The Prophet is saying, or Allah is saying to the Prophet, tell them, فَسَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ مَنْ تَكُونُ لَهُ عَاقِبَةُ الدَّارِ. In the future you will come to know who is actually successful, who is going to have the ultimate outcome and ending with Allah. Why not say immediately you're going to know? Don't give up your struggle. Explain it. So you have hope, you don't give up your struggle, and sometimes things don't happen for you immediately. Do you understand? Even here, it's couched in the context that this might happen after 10, 20, 30 years. Sometimes your struggle and all that you put in doesn't come to fruition straight away. It's a lifelong journey. If the Prophet is telling them this in Mecca, فَسَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ, you're going to know in the future who is going to have the ultimate outcome. How long did it take for that to come to fruition and proof? At least 10 years. Maybe even 15 by the time Fath Makkah comes. So the Prophet is saying, you'll come to know it. But even in my words, I'm telling you, you won't come to know it now, because there's only one of me. There's 1,000 of you. So I can't tell you I'm going to be victorious today فسوف تعلمون من تكون له عاقبة الدار. So you don't give up hope, and you know it's a long-term game that you're playing, that you're actually going to win the war and not just the battle. إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Allah does not help the wrongdoers. Indeed, they will not succeed. They will not become muflihin. They will not become successful. So do you remember the previous verse, the one that we started with a couple of minutes ago? We mentioned chapter 3 verse 195. You guys told me the meaning of it. لا أضيع عمل عامل. Allah does not allow any work to go to waste. And you guys told me that the meaning of that is that carry on working. Don't just work to 10% of your capacity. Work to 100% of your capacity. Don't just imagine that it's going to happen now. It's going to happen in the future. And then look at this verse that you just read. Put the two verses together. Can you see how they beautifully match each other in their theme? Allah does not let your work go to waste. And then Allah also tells you it will happen in the future. Your work will come to fruition later on, even if it's 10, 15, 20 years later. Let's go back. What's the next verse that you want to look at? Now remember, we said that there are some verses that we already looked at last night. So what's the next verse that we didn't look at yesterday? $11.93. It's very similar. So if you just quickly read it, يا قوم اعملوا على مكانتكم إني عامل. It's an almost identical ayah. So what's the next one? So the next one is 11:121. وَقُلْ لِلَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ اِعْمَلُوا عَلَى مَكَانَتِكُمْ إِنَّا عَامِلُونَ. So now this is taking in the plural sense. We are working. It's gone from inni amilun to inna amilun. We are working. What do you take away from that? Ah, very nice. Very, very nice. If I'm speaking to you as an individual, you guys do your worst. I'm working. And then a year later, I come back and say, you guys do your worst. We are working. What does it tell you? The Prophet's got followers. The Prophet's building. People are starting to leave that side and they're coming to this side. Understand? Anything else? Next ayah? What's the next ayah that we could look at? That we didn't look at yesterday? Good. 23:63. So everybody, is it open, inshallah? Surah Al-Mu'minun, verse number 63. Adnan, you got it? Super. All of you, you got it? You're still following along in the order? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. بل قلوبهم في غمرة من هذا ولهم أعمال من دون ذلك هم لها عاملون. Who wants to be able to read this and comment on it? I think this will be the last one we get through because of time. What time is Salah? 50. So maybe we have to finish in 2 or 3 minutes to give everyone time for their wudu break. Who wants to talk to us about this? Very quickly. Okay, good. So what we would have to do is we'd have to go back into the sequence, the siyaq of the ayat before. Do you remember? I told you, you always have to go back one ayah, a few ayah, 3 ayat, 5 ayat, and read the context. So as an example, if you go back all the way to verses 54, 55, فَذَرْهُمْ فِي غَمْرَتِهِمْ حَتَّى حِينٍ leave them in their overwhelming ignorance. See, Allah is describing them. أَيَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّا نُمِدُّهُمْ بِهِ مِن مَالٍ وَبَنِينَ. Do they think that by what we give them of wealth and children, that we're actually supporting them, that we're benefiting them, we're looking after them? نُصَارِعُ لَهُمْ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ. We are hastening to them of good things, بَلْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. But they don't realize what is going on. So you would read how Allah is describing the situation. Verse 63 that we come to, بَلْ قُلُوبُهُمْ فِي غَمْرَةٍ مِّنْ هَذَا. But their hearts are overwhelmed in ignorance. وَلَهُمْ أَعْمَالٌ مِّن دُونِ ذَلِكَ. But their acts have, besides the ones that Allah has listed, besides this as well, even worse, even more things that they have done. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us. هُمْ لَهَا عَامِلُونَ. Okay, so the idea here has been for us to be able to practice technique 1 and technique 2. Technique 1 was for us to be able to search the word amilin. Technique 2 was to see how Allah uses it in other forms of Arabic. So we saw it in the singular and we saw it in the collective, in the jam' as well, in the plural sense as well. And we get to see all the different ayat way Allah uses the word amilin. Can you see how much Allah is building into this particular word? If you want to know who is the amil, how Allah contextualizes the word amil, this is how you would do it. Okay, tomorrow is the last lesson in our series. And you're going to practice technique number 3. Technique number 3 was for you to be able to bring verses regarding the subject that you are looking at, but not with the word that you're looking at. That means I would like you tonight to read the Quran, and I want you to find verses regarding amilin without the word amil in it. What are the characteristics and the qualities of the amilin in the Quran other than when Allah uses the word amil or amilin or amilun? Now the only way you can do that is by reading the Quran. And when you read the Quran and you read it attentively and you say, oh, that's interesting, that's something that builds my understanding of what Allah talks about. It might be a different word, it might be a synonym. Allah uses a different word for amil. It might be that Allah gives you a list of verses that He talks about those people who are hard workers in the community, but He doesn't use the word workers. There are many, many verses that you could bring. That's technique number 3. So you build your jigsaw puzzle of verses by using verses that are indirectly regarding the subject matter that you are looking at. And we did this previously. Do you remember we asked the question, how does Allah speak about tyrants in the Quran? Do you remember? And we brought 4 or 5 verses where Allah talks about mamluk and tyrants and things. This is what you're going to do tonight as your homework. And tomorrow, as many as of you would like, present one ayah or one set of ayat regarding amilun, but without using the word amil in it, inshallah. And that is technique number 3. Our discussion tonight and the iftar has been sponsored for the marhumin of the following of Brother Reza. I'm going to have to ask my help here because if I get it wrong then I apologize. Yes, Durandish, correct? Is that sure? Yep. Got it right? And sorry? First time. Alhamdulillah. Tahrim Hussein Durandish and Shiraz and Batul Bukhari. In particular, Shiraz's father Sayyid Sabir Hussein Shah. May Allah bless all of their marhumin with a